Thank you so much for joining us here on the Voice of Job Seekers podcast. This is Mark, and you want to know more about the Voice of Job Seekers, go to voiceofjobseekers.com. You can also leave me a message right there on the site and send voicemail button right there to the right. Hopefully if this show resonates with you, that you'll share it with a friend, or that you'll be able to come back to it and maybe listen again and read the show notes at thevoiceofjobseekers.com. I got back with me my friend Ryan Rhoten, who is from ryanrhoten.com and also a podcast fellow podcaster. He's been on this show before. Look back, and I'll have the show notes to the link to the show where he was with me, and I was also on his show. But I'm back because, and he's back because of his latest book, his first book, CareerKred, 4 Simple Steps to Build Your Digital Brand and Boost Credibility in Your Career. Ryan has been featured on Forbes and Mashable. His podcast has been one of the top career podcasts on a number of lists for a couple of years now. So I want to welcome you back, sir, to the show.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm honored to be a second-time guest.
Yes, absolutely. We share a lot of friends in common now. And
that's true.
We've shared a lot of great conversations since we've been on. So we're bonded forever. One of the things that I knew that you were kind of thinking about writing a book, and I know that's been in the process for a long time. So it's not something that just came over you as a revelation, write this book, and here it is. Take us a little bit through the process, though. I'm not going to be surprised that a lot of people already know what the process is already.
Well, I mean, really, the story begins several years ago, and rather than go through it in detail, what really happened was there was a catalyst moment for me where I decided, I either need to stop talking about what I've been talking about, or I need to just go do it. And so that was the day that I committed to myself to write a blog post every day, all through the week. I took Saturdays and Sundays off, but I had a blog post that went out every day, every week, and it forced me to kind of put my money behind my mouth, if you will, to say, look, I'm not going to talk about it anymore. Now I'm going to start sharing what I'm learning with others. And, as I think as a natural progression to that, and you know this too, as you learn more and more stuff about a particular profession or an area or a career or subject matter field of expertise, you reach a point where you feel compelled that you have to share it with others. Sure. Because other people can benefit from your knowledge. And so for me, it all goes back to that first decision of let's start. Let's stop talking and let's start doing. And so for about a year and a half through 2015 and into 2016, I was writing a blog post a day. I think in 2016 I backed off to twice a week, just because I started to get busy with the podcast and all the other stuff that was going on. But still, I continued to post content. I continued to learn. I talked to people knowledgeable like yourself. And, I grew my circle. I completely changed my circle of 5. That old quote that you become the, 5 people that you hang out with and the 5 books that you read. And, like you said earlier, we hang out now with the same people. Well, I didn't know any of those people till I started. And because I was sharing knowledge, we just all kind of got to know each other. And so right about last summer, 2016, I decided, you know what, I have enough content and I have enough material that it's time to put it all together into a package that I can help get the word out to a broader audience. And that package just happened to be the book that we're discussing today, CareerKred.
Yeah. I think what's great is when in doubt and people wonder, how can I start blogging? How can I start podcasting? take people on the journey. That's exactly what you did. You took people on the journey. From writing the first blog post to the podcast episodes to this point, and you brought people along, and people are afraid to take people that journey, I think, because they're afraid of the part where they have to explain why did they stumble, or if they didn't stumble, it doesn't have to always be a great big deal. This is where I learned, and sometimes what's wrong and what you did wrong is just as valuable as what you did right if you're putting it in correct context.
Absolutely. I mean, we're all humans. We all stumble.
Sure.
And we're going to make mistakes, and you can't let that stop you. In fact, you should let that motivate you in some way, because as you just said, when you make a mistake, you learn something. And if you, and as you're learning that, if you can share that same learning with someone else, well, what you've just done is you've helped them avoid that same mistake. And so now they know not to go in that path as well. It's just this, and one of the things that I think is important about getting started and making those mistakes and learning as you go is, as you look at the career landscape in general, and something you and I talked about before we turned on the microphone, or the hit record button rather. As we look at ourselves and we look at where jobs are going, we have to start thinking ourselves like we're consultants. Is something that, an idea that a seed that you planted in my brain with the last time we spoke. And as we do that, it becomes really important for us to be able to demonstrate today, especially in public, our experiences and our skills. I was reading an interesting article last week by a gentleman also in the career space whose name escapes me right now, but the title of it was, "In 10 years, there will be no more job interviews to get positions." And what they mean by that is people, recruiters and hiring managers and people who make those hiring decisions are going to be looking at your demonstrated expertise and your demonstrated skills online. They're going to be looking for what you've done as evidence that you can do it again for them, as opposed to hiring you and letting you try to convince them that you can do it. They're actually going to want to see proof. And getting started and going through the mechanics of failing and learning from your failures, it just makes you that much better in the end, and it makes you a better, more human candidate.
Right. I think the idea of artificial intelligence is what we've been reading a lot about, and a lot of it's going to be taken from our patterns, our habits, and putting that into data and be able to recreate that. But also it's going to be a decision maker of how people will make decisions about yourself. I can foresee even interviews looking for your personal branding online, and to even before you would even apply, they would have the ideal, candidate in mind. They would have what it looked like, and instead of being compared to a bunch of data and numbers, you're compared to an avatar. I mean, I can really see that happening, and I can see that even going so much further than that. But if you don't get started now, if you're not doing it now, you're risking the opportunities and the intel that could be collected about you for people to make informed decisions about whether they should hire you, whether they want you to come speak, whether they want to consult with you, whether they want to partner with you. And in fact, if you have so much data, they're just deciding how they want to partner with you, not if they want to partner with you.
Right. I mean, it goes back to the conversation we had last time, and the fact that if you're a consultant, if you're a business of one, and you think that way, people do business with people they know, they like, and they trust.
Sure.
Companies now have the ability through your online presence to get to know, like, and trust you. And really, if that's kind of what an interview is all about. It's about building that rapport. It's about helping the interviewee or interviewer understand more, know more about you, build a rapport, get to know, to like you, and to ultimately they have to trust that what you say you can do, you can actually do. Yeah. Whereas 2-3 years from now, maybe sooner, they're going to be able to glean that same information from your online presence.
And although I think you and I have talk to people, we talked to a lot of our peers about interview questions, I can see how maybe the future of interviews and how we build our brands won't be built around the questions that we can answer and how we answer and how well we answer it, but based on the intel that's collected, how you're able to apply that in a very practical way. And that it may not even have to be a perfect way, but based on what you know and the data that's collected and the intel that's collected from the internet space, that's going to really be your directives. Can you put that into a competency that will work for that particular company?
Right. I mean, think about I would love to one day see the dreaded "tell me about yourself" question go away.
Yeah.
Because they no longer need to know the answer to that because they can glean it from your online presence.
Right. So let's talk more specifically about your book.
Okay.
And particularly as we talked about the word CareerKred. Give people a little bit of background as to how did you come up with that particular phrase and actually coined a new word.
Well, I didn't do it by accident. I did it by accident. Actually, I was watching a TV show, and I don't remember which one, but they talked about street cred.
Yeah.
In the TV show, and street cred is simply knowledge and experience that you have about quote unquote the streets or your particular area where you live or where you might be. Mm-hmm. And if you really stop and you think about it and you take that same concept and you apply it to a career, you have the same, it works out the same way. Career cred in my vernacular, if we want to call it that, is simply the influence and the trust that you earn over time through your actions and experiences as they relate to your career. So within your career, each and every day that you go to work, you're either adding to your career credibility or you're taking away from it, depending upon the job that you're doing. And so it just really made sense to me that in a particular area of expertise, you can also develop a credibility. And today, that credibility is usually, or it used to be that credibility was only felt within the four walls that you worked. So your boss knew, your boss's boss knew, maybe somebody in another department or organization knew that you were a credible person, that you did a good job, that you were dependable, and that you had demonstrated over time that, hey, we know we can rely on Mark to get this particular job done. Mm-hmm. Well, today, now with the advent of the internet, we really have the ability to take our career cred globally so that companies all over the world and outside of our four walls can also see and understand the credibility that we have and have demonstrated in our careers, just back to what we were talking about before.
Mm-hmm. Thus, once you put it on your LinkedIn profile where you saved money, you made profit, you exceeded in certain areas, once you put it out there, that's the beginning of putting it out there to the world. Not that it has to always be an amplification of something that might be just meant for the company, but that it is available for when people come by your particular profile, they can see that those things that you accomplish matters to that company to get them thinking, hey, that may be, pertinent to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the first places, as you know, recruiters, hiring managers go. Even now, I find myself, if I'm going to interview or if I'm going to talk to someone about a specific topic or subject or have a meeting with them, I find myself going to LinkedIn or Google to look them up so that I can find commonalities, areas where we can talk about and build rapport, but also I want to make sure that they are as credible as they say they are in an email, for example.
Sure. And that other people think that they're credible.
Right, exactly.
That's really the connection to it all, is that if people are raving about you, you have recommendations, you have endorsements, you have all those things, and as we talked about earlier, even when you're not in a room, that people are saying those very same things about you, that builds, for all practical purposes, a stream of work that you could be doing without interruption for years.
Yep, that's your credibility. That if you really think about it, everything in your career goes back to how credible you are at doing your job. Mm-hmm. Do you get a promotion because you do good work? Yes, but you also get it because you're credible at the work that you do, and others recognize it. So therefore, you get rewarded with the promotion because people know they can put you in it. You've demonstrated that you can do the work, and they know that they can trust the outcome that you'll produce for them.
Sure. So really, there's no such thing anymore. As I thought about it as I was reading the chapter, because you dedicate a little bit of time about building credibility locally, that really kind of goes away with the internet, because when you put on the internet, anybody can find it around the world. So really,
absolutely.
To go to your point, that everyone's branding or online reputation, however you want to put it, is global. It's a matter if you're thinking global or not. If you're only thinking local, you will restrict yourself from being able to show the world. But if you're willing to think globally and how that'll look to the world, then, not that you're a celebrity, but in essence that the world will be able to see it.
Yeah. Well, it may help too to think of locally as just the four walls within the building at which you work each and every day. Mm-hmm. And globally can simply be the expansion of that knowledge of your credibility to the block of companies that are around you, to the city that you work in, to the area, the region that you work in. When I say globally, I simply mean stepping outside the four walls so that people who you don't know today can get to know you and can get to understand through your demonstrated expertise how good you are and how much value you add within your area or your niche, whatever that might be, whether it's product management or accounting or procurement. If you're diligent about building your brand online, other people will see and take notice of that.
Sure. Let's talk about risks for a second, because I think some people feel like that there is a risk in building a brand online. In 2017, what kind of risks that the myths that perhaps we should burst? What if all of this goes wrong?
Well, I personally think that there's a bigger risk in not doing it. Yeah. Because you risk becoming irrelevant or invisible, which is not, doesn't bode well for you down the road. But if you look at the common risks that I hear about, which is my company's going to be upset with me if I put together a LinkedIn profile, or they're going to think that I'm changing jobs. I want to change jobs if I put in a LinkedIn profile. I've heard a lot of things around that. Or if I create a website, my company's going to fire me because I have a website. And I understand those concerns, but the reality is that your company's not going to fire you for creating your own website unless your website is disparaging towards them. Yeah. Which, I don't think any of your listeners are going to do. No. Or unless your website is promoting something that's against your company values. In those cases, companies can, if they notice it to begin with. I mean, I don't know that companies really pay much attention. I'm sure there's some that do, but I don't think really in the grand scheme of things, companies pay much attention to their employees' LinkedIn profiles. And even if they do, I think they understand today that if you leverage a LinkedIn profile the right way and you encourage your employees to do them the right way, you actually, from an employer branding standpoint, you actually look like you have a company full of A players, full of people who have lots and lots of demonstrated expertise. And many of the hiring managers I talk to, that's the perception they want. They want people to know that, hey, if you come work here, we got a bunch of really great A players. Take a look at some of these LinkedIn profiles of the people that work here.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think you can say you're concerned about that, but I think it's just a bigger risk to not do it today.
Yeah.
That's more of the risk I would be concerned about. I don't think anybody is going to get fired because they update their LinkedIn profile and they put their accomplishments and their achievements there, unless of course they're sharing, intellectual property, stuff like that. You don't want to do those things. But I would encourage people, if they're really truly worried about it, go have a conversation with their boss.
Yeah.
And or read the company's policy on social media, and then make sure you stay within those guidelines. But, outside of that, I really don't see the risk in creating these profiles online unless they directly contradict or conflict with your current employer.
Mm. If there was a must-read chapter of your book, you don't have to give me the chapter as you think about it, but maybe the idea that you've thought the most deeply about that's probably affected you the most personally.
You know what? I will say the very last chapter, the ending of the book, and for multiple reasons. One, it's the place where I had to tie everything together. Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, you go through a logical progression as you write a book. You introduce it. You tell people about the benefits and why you want to do it and why it's bad if you don't. And then you go through the process of here's the things that you need to be doing and how you do them. Mm-hmm. But when you get to the end of the book, you want people to walk away with a choice or a decision that they have to make. Sure. And for me, the last chapter, which is, I believe, called "Do You Believe in Fate?" That took, believe it or not, that probably took me a week to write. Mm-hmm. And it's not that long. It's only like 3 pages. But I think it ties everything together because I'm able to talk about, the future and why it's important that you build a digital presence and what the ramifications could be if you don't. And so, the hardest one to write was the end of the chapter, but I also think it's probably one of the most important because my hope is that it's written well enough that it spurs people to action.
Awesome. Well, so far, so good for me as far as a read. It's a great read. I think it's important that if you don't have an online presence, or whether you do or you don't, I think this is a great book to reference. You'll not only get to hear Ryan's story as he tells it and how he's learned through the dozens of podcast guests, people he's interviewed, which is part of the basis of the book and his blog, and also for the fact that he's done the work. He's done the coaching sessions, the conferences, the seminars. He's done the speaking on it, not including of all the media interviews that he's done as well. So CareerKred, 4 simple steps to build your digital brand and boost credibility in your career. You can find him at ryanrhoten.com, RyanRhoten.com, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Great. Ryan, thank you so much for coming on again. I know I kind of coerced him into
no coercion at all, man. Anytime you invite me, I'm coming.
Yeah, it's great. And definitely we'll have you back again. Thanks so much, Ryan. And for the rest of you, thank you for joining me here on The Voice of Job Seekers. If you have any questions, you can email me at mark@thevoiceofjobseekers.com, or you can call or text me at 708-365-9822. In the meantime, thank you very much. We'll see you next week. Have a great week.